I should probably get the article up and ready.
Yeah. Hello, everybody, and welcome to Honey Badger Radio. My name is Brian. I'm here with Allison, and this is Maintaining Frame number 39. This is why men need to be saved from men's rights activists or advocates. I think I'd rather say that. Sorry for the confusion about the time. I thought that I said it for 3:15, but I guess I accidentally said it for 3:45. So yeah, it looks like we're going to be starting a little bit early. Hopefully people will see that we're live.
Why we're not late, yo. This is completely by accident that we're on time.
We're super early.
Yeah.
But like it, I don't know. The description, I think, said 3:15. Yeah. So I wouldn't
worry about it. It's right. One of those things. Just like this article. It's one of those things.
Yeah, it's one of those things. So, I guess continuing in our recognition of the clear superiority of women, this Women's History Month, although, as I said before, we're not in the world of women anymore. Now we're in the world of women plus, which is...
Women but better.
Yeah, women but better. I mean, and...
women but more victim-y. It's like now feminists can appropriate all misandry as misogyny. It's just too rich a vein of victimhood to possibly give up for intersectional feminists. It's just too rich, guys. You see, now they can say that everything that faces men is actually faced by women.
Mm-hmm.
They have hit the mother lode of vulnerability.
That's like the rock bottom.
Yeah, well, they're cracking the salt dome and they're getting like a rush of crude.
Yeah,
like it is the being able to take the things that happen to men and say that they happen to women. Just plain things that happen to men. We don't have to talk about black men. We don't have to talk about disabled men, gay men. Just things that happen to men. And then use the logic of intersectionality and say, no, actually, these things happen to women. That is the mother lode for feminists. This is the, how do you say, the universal equation, UAE, the grand unified theory of everything, but for feminists. This means that they have claimed every single victimhood resource on the planet for women, for wealthy, connected women who never had to sacrifice to even have the society that creates, sacrifice their lives to create the society that they enjoy.
Mm-hmm.
So literally, this is the mother lode. This is it, guys.
Yeah.
Oh man, this is
like the lowest level in Dante's.
Yeah, we're hitting it.
Divine Comedy. So we're going to be looking at an article from the Institute for Family Studies. And I'm going to put it on the screen, and it's entitled Saving Men from the Men's Rights Movement. And I got to say, I haven't seen something like this in a while. I thought that we were forgotten. I thought that MRAs were forgotten. It was all about like incels.
Well, it was a year ago. It was a year ago that this was written. It just came to our attention.
Oh, I see. Yeah, you're right. But I don't think we were doing it much back then either. Because
no.
Yeah, because I think it was just one of those things where talking about feminism and men's issues kind of like fell out of fashion. I mean, we didn't stop doing it, but the internet
it didn't fall out of fashion. It's almost like it became this outpouring of exaltation as everything started to be like subsumed into this idea of constructing the perfect feminine society.
Mm-hmm.
So everyone has to tiptoe around the most vulnerable members of society. Everyone has to be super duper careful. They have to walk on eggshells. We cotton batten everything in society. It was like, it's almost like they won and they were just doing a victory lap. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
It was it. Like, it's like the last bits of society that in any way, and they would, the individuals like intersectionalists, feminists, liberals, the liberals who are currently squatting in the word, they would say that this is a triumph of feminine virtues over masculine virtues. You know, they finally got it. We are there, folks. We are living the dream. This is the triumph of feminine virtues. I hope you're enjoying it, especially the people in Ohio.
East Palestine, or at East Palestine.
Are you enjoying the triumph of middle management and meetings and corpo speak and all of that crap over actually getting things done?
Yeah,
actually caring about how systems run and work. Yeah. Are we enjoying ourselves yet? Are we entertained yet?
Yeah.
Okay.
So yeah, we found this article. I haven't read it, but that's how I approach most of these, because I want to have a natural reaction.
Yeah, we want to have a natural reaction. We
also
want to
have a natural reaction to the article. Hopefully it's not just like dull. That's the worst thing, right? If it turned out to be a positive article where it starts off making you think that, oh, this guy's gonna rag on men for the whole thing, and then it turns out that it was like all a ruse, and then actually they're a big supporter, right? That would be better than if it was just boring. So, and we've unfortunately had the mispleasure of reading through a couple of boring articles. Although I'd say that most of them are good, though. Either they're good rage fuel, or in less commonly they're actually pro. Excuse me. They're actually pro male. In some way, right? So anyway,
well, you can pick something out. Yeah. But before we go into it, I would like to tell everybody that I am starting our monthly fundraiser. I'm doing it early because I'm hoping that you guys will consider funding a bit more early, so at the end I'm not like biting my nails and in anxiety over whether or not we make it. But if you would like to help us out and make sure that this particular message doesn't go the way of the dodo. And I think what's really interesting is somebody sent me a tweet. Oh, I should TP something on Twitter. He sent me a tweet. And let me just pull this up because it was really interesting.
Okay.
The tweet was from James Lindsay. And he says, at Conceptual James, if you're interested, the woke ideology is female. You can't respond to it with toxic masculine strength. That's punching a woman in the face. Matt does great. He's talking to Matt and Walsh. Then says stuff like, you wanted this fight, so now you have it. That's not how you deal with a hysterical woman. That's for an aggressive man. Mm-hmm. So I believe he might be more on the libertarian or conservative end. Correct me if I'm wrong. James Lindsay?
He's a liberal.
Liberal. Oh, he's a liberal.
He's I'll put it this way, because I know that's like a word that's pretty charged. He's like a reasonable liberal that is against the woke ideology. So okay. So basically, a fascist man-child. He's a Nazi just like the rest of us.
Yeah, it doesn't matter. But it's interesting that he's starting to realize, and then he goes into this long sort of Twitter thread. Woke advances by summoning demons that barely exist so that it can defeat them. When Matt and other reactionaries step up into that aggressive man versus man posture, they become the left's demon and thus help them. So somebody sent this tweet to me. I apologize. I don't know your name offhand, but thank you for that. And I said that I talked about this 9 years ago on my personal channel, which is Typhon Blue, and it was under the playlist Threat Narratives. They're constructing a threat narrative. Mm-hmm. And the reaction to that threat narrative contributes and feeds into that threat narrative. And it's just interesting to see that what we talk about and the thoughts that we are presenting and the recognition that this is feminine virtue, guys. Wokeism is female.
Yes, it is. I've been saying that for a long time myself. It's definitely feminine. It's like an unbridled, completely off the leash feminine behavior. So
yeah, like completely like not just off the leash as in like it isn't a wise feminine behavior.
Yeah.
It's a feminine behavior that's completely absent any sense of personal agency or self-awareness.
Yeah.
So it's like the worst masculine behavior. It's like blowing up frogs just because you can. Well, that's not the worst, but it's like akin to that, right? And other people are starting to realize the stuff that we've been talking about for years, like 10 years after we talk about it, but it's getting there. But anyway, so I think that what we talk about, it's really critical to make sure that we are able to continue to talk about these things in the way that we do. And I pointed out that the only way to end this threat narrative that liberal women are spinning is to challenge not actually the trans radical activists, but challenge why the liberal women are empowering the trans radical activists in the first place, the radical trans activists in the first place. And the reason why they're doing that is because they get to live vicariously through their oppression and confirm to themselves that men hate women. That's what they're doing. They're confirming their belief system. And you got to challenge that. And I don't think any particular political group on the spectrum now actually gives men the tools to challenge that.
Yeah.
Other than us.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So I think that's really critical going forward. It's going to be, if we are able to save this civilization and start going forward again and not just cede it to the BRICS. And I guess that wouldn't be a bad outcome. Maybe the BRICS are the future of the human race. The BRICS nations and Russia. Maybe they're the future, Russia, China, and the BRICS. And we are just going to slump into some ridiculous solipsistic nightmare, constantly humping this idea that the future is female. Or we will start to challenge what liberal women are doing, what feminism has put out into the world, and how it's destroying the basis of all of our social structures and institutions. You can't say the fundamental human identity is split into victims and oppressors and then expect people to not be fearful of each other and embrace increasingly draconian, lying, and I want to say fascistic, authoritarian structures. Like, as soon as you introduce this fear of each other, we want some big bully to come in and control our neighbor, right? We want to make sure our neighbor can't harm us because there's obviously evil lurking in his heart. So we give up our freedom to make sure our neighbor is controlled. And that all starts with these awful fundamental beliefs about our identities as men and women. And that comes from feminism. So until you end that, you're not doing anything. You're basically just pointing out how parts of the boat are sinking. Well, the whole thing's sinking. All of it. The media is sinking. The government's sinking. Like, the electoral system is sinking. Your ability to wage war is sinking. Like, your economy is sinking, even though they're pretending otherwise. Right? Everything is sinking. And there is absolutely no point to pointing out everything that's sinking on the boat that's sinking, because it's sinking. The point is, we need to start fixing it. And the only way to start fixing it is to start challenging the ideology that caused this mess, that's causing our society to crater. And as I've said multiple times, you cannot frame men and women, the gender roles of men and women, the socialization of men and women in this fashion and not lose everything you've built. Because why do men build? For women. So what do men do when you say, well, what you're building is harming women? They stop building it. They stop investing in it. They stop making that extra bit of effort that stops trains from being derailed. And I see this happening everywhere. Wages of sin. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry about the rant. Anyway,
No,
please
it's okay.
help us out at feedthebadger.com/support and make sure we can continue to, in my opinion, talk about the only politics that matter. All right.
Yeah.
Do you want to start?
Yeah, let's do it. Okay, so Saving Men from the Men's Rights Movement by Ari David Blaff. I hope I'm not mispronouncing any of that. For most in North America, the word men's rights advocate, or MRA, is synonymous with sexism and hatred. I wonder why. Members are seen as resentful guys projecting their poisonous hatred at a changing world that's left them behind. That judgment is not entirely misplaced.
And also, in the end of the day, do you really think you can have society that completely that has takes no effort to engage men in it? I mean, literally, men are the ones who fund everything. Like, they're the only net taxpayers, the only group of people who isn't a net drain on the tax base. They don't expect as much in terms of resources. They produce far more than they expect. And if you don't engage them in the work of creating your society, is it really men's issues or is it society's issues that society is refusing to look at? I mean, at the end of the day. Anyway.
All right.
Okay.
Look no further than the leadership of the movement. Paul Elam, creator of the website A Voice for Men, explained while speaking at a conference that divorce, quote, socializes women to be opportunistic parasites in the lives of men, end quote. Well, yeah. like there's no, what's the penalty? You know, if you're,
yeah, what is?
There, I mean, like, if you're a woman.
At least as it's framed now, right?
Say what?
At least as divorce is created now.
Right? Yeah, well, because it's not just, I mean, I'm sure if you talk to Paul, like, just the idea of divorce on its own, in isolation, it's okay. I mean, it's, you know, it's not good news. It's not, like, you know, something that should be, I don't know, celebrated or whatever, because obviously it means that there's heartbreak and stuff like that. But in the modern age, divorce is not just divorce. You know, it's like, you know, she's gonna ruin his life. There's and the thing is that, like, there are all of these factors that essentially, like, you know, exist, or organizations or people or whatever that exist specifically to help the woman get as much as she can out of her husband, you know, in the divorce. So yeah, it socializes women to be opportunistic parasites. Like, when you take into account, you know, the greater context, right? And it doesn't, you don't even have to be married. Like, I just heard a story about Tiger Woods. He had a girlfriend, and at one point, I guess he, like, kicked her out of his house or something, right? And she's suing him for like $20 million. They're not even married. I mean, they've been living together for long enough that it's, you know, what do they call it? Where if you're living with your partner,
common law.
Yeah, common law. But yeah, she's gonna try to get 20 million out of him. And why? Because they got in, I guess they had a fight or something, and he kicked her out. So just an example. I think, you know, this is like, they couldn't work it out another way. Well, why should they have to if she can, like, get a payout? So, all right. Yeah. Anyway.
Well, what I wanted to point out was that, well, first of all, he's saying divorce law. I mean, I'm sure that feminists, if men could divorce, get the kids, and expect child support from women, feminists would be right all over how that turns men into parasites. Right? They already think that marriage turns men into parasites on women. That's like a huge amount of their rhetoric around marriage, is that marriage is like some kind of vampirism in which men are sucking the life out of women. So okay, so you say the men's rights movement is saying that it's parasitic. Well, so does feminism. So just on its face, all they're doing is repeating feminism, right? Or what feminism says about marriage for women.
Mm-hmm.
But on the men's rights issues side, they have a point.
Yeah.
Like feminism tries to base this on hours work study that almost always shows that men work more, and other stuff, and happiness studies, which shows that men who are married are happier than women who are married. Although women who are married are happier than single women, and single men are happier than single women. So I think it's just that men tend to be happier with the same situation or even a worse situation than women.
Yeah.
But regardless, my overall point is, one, at worst, this is just flipping the script on feminism, which in and of itself seems to be a very valid thing to do, because it starts to get people thinking about what they're telling men. And number two, there is some legal realities here. One, and this is the really critical one, what are the obligations that a woman has to her husband after divorce? None. So why does a man have any obligations to her?
Yeah.
Okay?
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Okay? You know, and honestly, like they'll say, well, maybe she worked in the home, so she... Okay. Well, if she was employed as an in-house maid plus servant, or not servant, an in-house maid plus au pair, like taking care of the children, and he ended his contract with her, she'd still be in the same position.
Yeah.
But he isn't obligated. Like, these women aren't that, like, I mean, what about the rich women who fire their au pairs? Do they have to say, well, your au pair gave up her life to raise your children, therefore she's owed child support? Are you freaking kidding me? That wouldn't fly with these rich, these wealthy women who employ staff. Do you have to give your staff like 18 years severance pay if they're household staff? No. So yes, it does create a parasitic relationship. If you're that worried about your husband not getting paid upon divorce, then don't divorce your husband for the predominant reason that women get divorced: boredom.
Yeah.
Okay? Lots of people are bored with their jobs. Suck it up.
Yep.
Okay.
Yep. Okay. By the way, I just want to say hello, Twitch viewers. Hello, Rumble viewers. Thanks for joining us. All right. So, interviewed by The Independent in 2015, Mike Buchanan, the British leader of the upstart Justice for Men and Boys and the Women Who Support Them party, took aim squarely at feminism. Quote, "Men are stripped out of their families and become walking wallets because that suits the state. It's a very well-documented feminist objective of 40 years to destroy the nuclear family," end quote. These examples are just the tip of the iceberg, but in what way, like, is he wrong? Like, you know, it's funny because they say, oh, you know, he's got this upstart group called Justice for Men and Boys and the Women Who Support Them. Like, why is that a problem? You know, but apparently it is.
Yeah, you're absolutely
Buchanan
right.
are
They
part
don't
of
even
what...
They
what?
don't even say that they're trying to destroy the patriarchal family structure.
Yeah, I know. Does this person know that?
This is basically Mike Buchanan looked at a feminist publication, took a paragraph and said, "This is what they say. Insert paragraph from feminist publication."
Copy paste.
And then these people are copy paste, and then these people are like, "Oh, how dare!" Like,
yeah, it's like when a man says it, it's like it's actually serious. Like when a feminist says it, they just, you know, they pretend like they didn't hear it. But if a man says
just
it,
like,
yeah, go ahead.
Feminists can say this. Like, there are feminist groups out there. The feminist group, the lesbian separatists behind Black Lives Matter, explicitly said, "We are after the destruction of the traditional family." And there's plenty of feminist groups that have explicitly said we are after the destruction of the traditional family. And then this men's rights advocate says feminists say that they're after the destruction of the traditional family, and then this publication says, "Oh my God, how hateful!
How hyperbolic!
How hyperbolic!"
Yeah,
Are
right?
you kidding me?
But like the thing is too with Black Lives Matter, the Patrisse Cullors and her other two mansion owning friends. They don't just say, I mean, they do say that they believe in essentially like destroying the nuclear family. But it's not just that. They explicitly exclude men. Like they don't want men involved with like society at all because they just leave them out. And I know, and so black men are being excluded explicitly from all of their what would you call it? Their goals, I guess. So I think that's really important because, again,
it's really ironic too.
What?
Oh, sorry, just finish. Sorry.
Oh no, I was just saying that that is really important. Like that they're basically coming after men. So and they want them out. I don't know like what position we're supposed to fill, but not fathers. But anyway, Elam and Buchanan are part of what academics today call the manosphere, sphere. A loose amalgam made up of men. There's a typo here. There should be the word of. A loose amalgam made up of men angry with the state of gender politics. And while the formers represent the professionalized crust, baked into the pie are three even more odious layers. So now we're going to get linked to other parts of the manosphere. I just want to say, like, when they say men angry with the state of gender politics, they make it sound like it's like, like some kind of like matched struggle. And the truth is, gender politics is just feminism. Like, that's the mainstream. Everyone, just lives their life as though that is the world. And there is no opposition. So, yeah, it excludes men. It demonizes men. It separates men from their children. It creates distrust between men and women. It turns women into victims of everything that men do. It makes women afraid of men. It makes women not trust men, even hate them. And so, like, that's a problem, but it's not coming from two sides. It's coming from one side. So, and that side is the dominant side. Does that make sense?
Yes,
Allison,
it does.
Did you drop?
No. I just had a mute issue.
Oh, okay.
It totally makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, it's just the way that they're wording it.
Oh yeah, it's crazy. It's like, no, feminism is dominant, and even before that, the whole idea that society basically exists or should exist to protect and provide for women has always been a thing. It's like instinctual to humans. If you ask anyone who they'd rather harm, it's a man. Who they'd rather take resources from to give to a woman, men. It's like we expect men to sacrifice themselves for women. And this isn't something that feminism invented. It's something that feminism exploits. So this is age old. In fact, the really radical notion is that, hey, maybe we should take a moment and consider the well-being of the people who are expected to sacrifice for society, and consider maybe the types of sacrifice that we're asking for now are not very functional. No, that's the radical thing. You're right. There's no parity in these two messages.
Right.
One is overwhelming. It's everywhere. There is no political position. Like, there is no mainstream political position that says, hey, maybe we should take care of men too. There's none. Conservatives don't do that.
Yeah.
In fact, they're more often found condemning specific groups of men than they are helping men, like Muslim men or black men or poor
Trans
men.
women?
trans women who they think are men.
Is that bad for me to lump trans women in with men? I don't know.
I think it is not. I don't know. But
I'm not
honestly,
sure,
yeah.
I'm going to do it.
I see throughout my tenure as a men's rights activist, I see much more effort that conservatives, mainstream conservatives, put into condemning men, specific groups of men, than I've ever seen them advocating for their issues. Period. Mm-hmm. So this is the mainstream. It's just that feminism seems to think that they don't have any obligation whatsoever to anyone, not even society. No, society has an obligation to them.
Yeah. I mean, like, sometimes I don't even want to use the word feminists or feminism to describe this, because it's basically just like 99% of the population. They just all, they bought into the threat narratives and the sort of like, you know, history of the relationship between men and women. And so they just operate, you know, as NPCs under, I mean, you could say it's just feminist education, but I don't think that, you know, it's not, I don't think it's just feminism. Deeper. Like there's like, obviously there's things that are in place before, you know, the gender ideology gets involved, and it just uses what's already there to essentially like get power. It could be, it's, somebody said it's all gynocentrism. I mean, I don't want to overuse that word either, because sometimes I think it is overused, but yeah, I mean, it's the idea that feminism is making the case that is completely antithetical to the reality, and it convinces people that their case is the correct position. So men who don't even need to be asked will sacrifice themselves for women, and yet women are the ones that are the victims. So, all right, I hope that made sense. I know it was a little rambly. So, all right, so here are the 3 more odious layers. Men going their own way. MGTOW, wish to avoid women altogether to reclaim their masculinity. I don't think it's to reclaim their masculinity. I don't know where you got that, but what the hell is the problem with MGTOW? Like, if you think they're so awful, why do you insist that they not avoid women? Or that there's something wrong with that? I mean, you don't want them around women. So, you know, so yeah, MGTOW. And, you know, I don't have a problem with MGTOW. I support them. And, yeah, I mean, like, you know what it is. Sometimes I think that it's just the people who have a problem with MGTOW think that men should be around people who don't like them and essentially just, you know, be satisfied with that. It seems to me anyway.
Well, okay, so you expect men to be around women who, in many cases, believe that their gender is the source of all the problems in the world. Like, why should they have to be around them?
Exactly. Why do you want them around them if you don't think that men should be around women?
You know, okay. Okay. But yeah, it's just like all they want to do is just not be around women. That's it. And that's a problem. Okay, you can do the next one.
Yeah.
Or do you want me to do it? Pickup artists, PUAs, are fearful of the feminization of men and seek to dispel such notions by gamifying dating and harassing women. One prominent PUA, Roosh V, I'm not even going to bother, infamously hypothesized that legalizing rape on private property would incentivize women to be more vigilant over whom they socialize with, thus decreasing incidents of sexual assault. Obviously, this organization wants to see more sexual assault of women.
Yeah, obviously.
They just want to see more women raped because they don't like to examine anything that might reduce that.
Yeah.
I mean, because that's what it is. It is a thought experiment to reduce rape. Okay? It's a stupid thought of experiment, but that the impulse and the motivation is to reduce the rate of rape of women. So you are condemning a thought experiment that explicitly exists because someone thought it might reduce the rate of rape of women. All right, that's great. So nobody can think about how to reduce the rate of rate of rape of women, because too many R's in that, because the Institute for Family Studies hates the idea that fewer women will be raped. Okay, that is exactly the bad faith argument that you are labeling for Roosh right here. Mm-hmm. But regardless, pickup artists don't gamify harassment.
Yeah, why? How do you do that? Like, I mean,
they're trying to make it so that these men aren't perceived as harassing the women that they approach. Yeah. Like that literally pickup artists are like, we are trying to get women's consent and create an atmosphere in which they ultimately enjoy your company enough that they willingly go with you to engage in activities of an intimate nature. And they turn that into, oh my God, they want to get rid of women's consent and harass them.
Yeah.
I don't necessarily think all the pickup artists are kosher, maybe the right word. I don't know.
Well, I don't think we call them PUAs anymore. But it doesn't really matter, right?
It doesn't matter.
No, it doesn't. And like Roosh V, and I think this was before this article came out. He just stopped doing the PUA thing and became like a Eastern Orthodox. Hopefully, I'm not getting that wrong, but I'm fairly certain he's like a super Orthodox Christian now. So, and he's basically I think he's either looking for or has a woman, a single woman that he's monogamous with. So I'm just saying if it wasn't the case that it happened when this article came out, then okay, fine. But if it was, then yeah, you guys should probably get caught up on what's going on with people that you want to essentially call rapists, because that's kind of what they're suggesting. Lastly, and most insidiously, are incels, a fringe element seeking violent and often deadly revenge against a society dominated by female sexual power, uninterested in them. Well, first of all, incels are not an organized group. It's just what happens when a man, is still a virgin and he's an adult or something like that, right? They just struggle with relationships. That's all. They get, I understand, it's depressing and sometimes it is angering. Sometimes you feel you're just gonna grow old and die alone. And there's nothing wrong with men feeling that way. How about instead of suggesting that they're dangerous and violent and something needs to be done about them, maybe throw them in a prison cell or something before they get a chance to act out their sick fantasies about killing women and whatever. First of all, reach out to them, help them. They're just like so many other men who have been through similar things. We just have a term for it now. So they're not violent and often deadly. That's ridiculous. Did you want to say something to that before I move on?
Oh yeah, I'm muted. I was saying that this is just insane hyperbole. The fringe element seeking violent and often deadly revenge. No. They are if there are any of them that are genuine, and a lot of the people men who've been labeled as incel terrorists, Alec Manassian found out that that was just bullshit.
Yeah,
he actually had significant pressures around employment in his life.
Yeah,
that he was suffering from. So it was a psychological thing. Elliot Rodgers. I think Elliot Rodgers did this around the time that they were still blaming us for everything, the men's rights activists for everything. Because it used to be that we were one of the three more odious layers.
Yeah, that's right.
So we've actually been elevated up to the professionalized crust. But it's funny because they don't really you would think if this is a genuine problem there would be some group that these individuals could identify and say, well, they're doing it right. I mean, and I believe it's a genuine problem, but if they thought it was a genuine problem, why can't the Institute for Family Studies identify one group that they think is doing it right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, because the thing is, I think the line between groups who are doing it wrong and groups who are doing it right is the groups that are actually expressing how men feel.
Yeah.
So you can do it, but you cannot. I mean, where are the groups? I mean, what the family studies people are asking is, where are the groups that help men by not helping them? You know, like, where are the groups that help men but don't listen to them? Where are the groups that help men but don't give them a voice? You know, where are the groups that help men but actually really help women? Where are those groups? Those are the groups that are acceptable to them, probably.
Yeah, of course. I mean, I don't know. It's like they just don't. There's this massive blind spot, or they just don't care. So
yeah, well, they just don't like. They okay. Let's keep going. And
all right,
because I don't want to give spoilers. Because
all right. Entwined within this thicket of intolerance are uncomfortable truths which modern gender politics struggles to acknowledge. It's these kernels that MRAs leverage to attract alienated men into the fold. Oh, so it's not that we care. It's like a fishing line to pull, men who have into the fold. For instance, men confront a significant gender sentencing gap in the judicial sphere. According to research by legal scholar Sonia Starr, when men and women with similar criminal histories and arrest offenses appear before a judge, men on average receive over 60% longer sentences. To boot, women that are convicted are twice as likely to avoid imprisonment. For perspective, Starr found that the gender gap was 6 times greater than the racial sentencing gap. Yeah, or the racial sentencing disparity. And there's plenty of cases that we've covered on the show where women didn't go to jail at all. And they will, like there was the one that where there was a woman, she was a grown-ass woman, she raped a 13-year-old boy, she got pregnant by him, and it was called a sexual assault for one, because women can't technically rape. And by the wording of the word rape, like
she got probation, right?
What?
She got probation, right?
Yeah, but basically that's nothing. She got probation for raping, and not just like she raped a minor. It's essentially pedophilia, right? So, and that's not. I mean, it seems like it's really abnormal, but like in these cases, we've seen plenty of them where women not just rape men and get a lighter sentence or no sentence, but there are also cases where they rape boys. So
get no sentence.
Okay, so anyway, family court is no different. By 2013, only 1/6 of custodial parents were fathers. And even when they do have access to their children, men are likely to have significantly less face time compared with mothers. According to Custody Exchange, a scheduling tool for divorced couples with kids nationwide, fathers receive an estimated 35% of child custody time. Interestingly, so less than women. Interestingly, the company found Republican states deprive fathers and rewarded mothers, but most followed by Democratic ones, and finally swing states. On average, a typical divorced dad living in a red state will see his child 400 fewer hours each year than a blue state dad, and 700 fewer hours than a purple state dad, their research report concluded.
Wow.
Yeah.
Yeah. I said that. Like we began this. The Republicans are not the party of men. They couldn't give a flippin' fuck about men at all. And I wish people would stop thinking they do, or, some individual conservatives may be more open to the men's issues, some of them. But really, the thing is that Republicans at best advocate for men when they are performing the function that they think that they should. So they don't really advocate for men. They advocate for the particular function that they think men should perform. And they believe men should be in it because that function is generally sacrificial. All right. Yeah. So I'm not surprised swing states. Ironically, I didn't actually know that. Or maybe I should be surprised. It's actually those states that are not particularly partisan that men have the best deal in. Interesting, huh?
Well, yeah.
I guess it's because Republicans have the angel in the house narrative to justify giving more access to mothers, and Democrats have the feminist oppression narrative to justify taking away child custody from men. And the purple states are just like, ain't got no narratives.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe let's just go for equality. Yeah, that's interesting. Okay.
Yeah. Albert Data Retro gives us $5 Canadian and says, was that the woman Bill Maher defended, Mary Kay Letourneau? Well, that's just another example. And I do remember it was being covered, and I believe that she was on Bill Maher's show, but no, that's not what I just talked about. Is not an example of that. This is a recent story that I covered on the news show. I believe it was this week. So, in many cases, judges run roughshod, outdated stereotypes and all over modern men. The needle hasn't moved much over the decades, despite women scaling the socioeconomic ladder. Female breadwinners, who comprise only 10% of American households back in the 60s, by the 2010s represented over 40%. More recent data reveals similar findings. Nevertheless, female inroads in the workforce never trickled down to divorce courts. By 2010, Elle magazine reported men received alimony from ex-wives in only 3% of cases, wondering whether this glaring disparity was, quote, the last feminist taboo, end quote.
And you can't make the connection. Like, this is what's really fascinating. The the Institute for Family Studies can't make the connection between women being breadwinners but not paying alimony, but men, when they're breadwinners, paying alimony and seeing marriage as actually sort of parasitic for women. Okay? So if a woman goes into a marriage and she's the breadwinner, at the end, she doesn't have to pay her husband for his sacrifices. But if a man goes into a marriage and he's the breadwinner, at the end, he has to pay his wife, ex-wife, for her sacrifices. Really, you don't see how that's a disparity that could be referred to as parasitic.
Yeah. Huh? Yeah. I mean,
because it's like the resources go one way to the woman, like the resources go one way to the parasite. See how that works? And they can't make that connection. Yeah, it's not very flattering. But honestly, women's behavior and what they've allowed their advocacy group to advocate for on their behalf is not very flattering.
Yep.
Okay.
So, let's see. We see the same triviality directed at male suicide. While men overwhelmingly comprise the global victims of suicide across continents, regions, cultures, and age groups, the issue is a political football in the arena games of modern gender turf wars. In response to the well-established pattern of male self-harm, one Washington Post op-ed argued, quote, why the patriarchy is killing men, end quote, because, it's obviously men's fault. The prominent British feminist Chidera, I hope I'm not butchering this, Chidera Eguru poked at the same topic. Quote, if men are committing suicide because they can't cry, How is it my concern? End quote. Yeah, because that's totally the reason. Ergu tweeted, when others criticize her flippancy, Eguru spun it towards nuance. Quote, my points run deeper, and I'm requesting that we create a dialogue about the bigger issue of patriarchy, end quote. Sure she was.
No, I think I like the little snark there.
What?
I know you like the little snark. The last sentence. Sure, she was. You can just hear the snark.
Yeah.
Okay. Institute for Family Studies. You just became a men's rights activist with that little snark.
Yeah.
Because you realize that that's all of us. When you pointed and say, "Oh my gosh," you calling women or women as a result of divorce law, not women themselves, but women as a result of divorce law, parasitic. Well, that's snark. Okay. Yeah, we've been dealing with this a lot longer than you because we've cared about men a lot longer than you, and we're a lot snarkier about it. Yeah. My points run deep, and also my points run deeper. This is what she's saying. My points run deeper, and I'm requesting that we create a dialogue about the bigger issue of patriarchy. So patriarchy is a bigger issue than men killing themselves, is it?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, well, that's a feminist thought in a nutshell, isn't it?
It is. Of course.
Like, everything has to come back to my ideology. My ideology is a bigger issue than a group of people committing suicide or dying.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Right. These are the people that control the gender discourse, and they're wondering why the people who don't control the gender discourse are a little bit irate.
Yep.
Okay.
Okay, so the lampooning of men and the wholesale disregard for their suffering is seen once more when it comes to sexual assault in prison. Although such statistics are notoriously difficult to track down, Christopher Glazek provocatively wrote in N+1, I guess that's like a website, that crime had actually not declined in the United States over recent decades, but simply shifted, as Glazek argues. So this is from his piece that he wrote. The statistics touting the country's crime reduction miracle, when juxtaposed with those documenting the quantity of rape and assault that takes place each year within the correctional system, are exposed as not merely a lie or even a damn lie, but as the single most shameful lie in American life. Glazek's inspiration came from a bombshell New York Book Review piece called Prison Rape and the Government, which ultimately prompted the Department of Justice to release an estimate of the sexual assault in prison. The new number the DOJ publicized, 216,000, represented victims, not instances. This, Glazek reminds us, is historically unparalleled. And then he says in his book again, these victims are often assaulted multiple times over the course of the year. The Justice Department now seems to be saying that prison rape accounted for the majority of all rapes committed in the U.S. in 2008, likely making the United States the first country in the history of the world to count more rapes per men than for women. Count more rapes, though. So, if they conducted studies like this in prisons in other countries, especially Western countries, they'd probably find something similar. That's my input. That's my thought. We only do this.
Here's things that will really blow everybody's minds. A lot of those rapes are being committed by female staff. In fact, the majority of the sexual assaults. And honestly, there's no way for a prisoner to consent to sex with a guard. Like, I know people are like, oh, but they can. No, they don't. Like, you cannot consent with someone who's imprisoning you. Consent to the sex with someone who's imprisoning you, because they have absolute power over your life. So all of it is rape, and all of a significant portion of the rapes that they are reporting are of female staff. So the majority of the rape going on in prison is female staff raping male inmates. And then also after that, I think female inmates raping other female inmates. But we won't talk about that. That's not relevant, right? So that has a huge preponderance of female rapists. and female aggressors. And then when you look at the community, which is really going to blow people's minds, if you look at the community, 5 years in a row, the CDC has found that equal numbers of men in the last year, equal numbers of men report being forced to have sex. And 80% of them report a female aggressor. And
Wow.
in those years, like this most recent CDC report actually found more men reporting sexual assault. A lot of it's drug facilitated, but that means that basically someone drugged a man. This is actually very common because men are stronger. The weapons of choice are to slip something into his drink or pretend like you're giving him, you get a double shot instead of a single, that kind of thing, and incapacitate men or take advantage of the fact that they're already incapacitated to rape them.
Mm-hmm.
And this is genuine rape. This isn't just, we shared a glass of wine and then got busy. And this now means that in the last year, just as many men were raped by women as women were raped by men. I want that to sink in with people. Not only are men more likely to be rape victims, women are more likely to be rapists.
Mm-hmm.
And this is something that nobody wants to talk about. Nobody wants to touch. Nobody wants to look at. Nobody wants to acknowledge. Like there was this whole hysteria around the trans woman, or the individual who identified as a trans woman, going to a woman's prison. It's like, well, he or she or they are certainly gonna have fun there.
Yeah.
Because, like, I don't know what kind of view of female prisoners that the people who are up in arms over this have, but they aren't like the sorority girls being chased by the horror monster. Mm-hmm. Women in prison are the horror monster.
Yeah.
Like, they are, I guarantee, many of them are many times worse than that dude. And they are going to go into a woman's prison with a fucking flag on their back. And prison is a numbers game. That person, if they aren't ending up in protective custody, because probably the prison officials will put this transgender person into protective custody for their own sake, if that person is released to the general female prison population, their anus is going to be a greasy smear on the wall. Like, I'm not fucking kidding. They're going to throw that dude a freaking blanket party, and they're going to rape him with a table leg till he's shitting chunks of his own liver. So I'm like, this is a problem that solves itself, friends.
Yeah.
Throw the quote unquote trans woman. I think he's detransitioning now. Maybe he got a taste of women's prison. Throw them into the women's prison. Let them fuck around and find out.
Yeah.
Because they'd probably be safer in a men's prison, honestly. Okay.
And that number, the 216,000, these are not the number of rapes. These are the number of victims. And very frequently, a single victim can be raped multiple times over the course of a year. So the number of rapes is a lot higher. This is 216,000 is just the number of victims, and it's an estimate. So, all right. These victims, I think I read this part already, but I'm going to read it again. These victims are often assaulted multiple times over the course of the year. The Justice Department now seems to be saying that prison rape accounted for the majority of all rapes committed in the U.S. in 2008, likely making the United States the first country in the history of the world to count more rapes for men than for women. Nonetheless, such revelations will serve as low-hanging fruit for comedians and late night television for decades. Okay, yes, you're right. That's what Joe Rogan does. It's one of the few timeless jokes we can still count on in our age of political correctness. Wow. The list goes on. Men work in dramatically more dangerous fields, die, and are seriously injured at far higher rates than women. According to Kathy Young's reporting in the Boston Globe in 2013, 90% of work-related fatalities are male. Of course, because women go for jobs in air-conditioned cubicles that are relatively safe, which is probably the main reason why more women have entered the workforce, because it wasn't just about like availability or restriction to women for women to work, because I don't think anyone was really getting in the way. It was about like, oh, I want to work in an environment that's comfortable. I want like a desk job or something. So, that's my guess. Like if you can work at Google and you basically spend the whole day like snacking, drinking like, cachava and eating avocado toast, and you get paid like 6 figures for it, you couldn't do that like 50 years ago. I mean, there were some desk jobs for women, or that women wanted. But yeah, I mean, most of most of the jobs that men are dying in are not those. Okay. To many, the very notion of men's issues or men's rights seems laughable. But consider, if women were dying in 90% of workplace fatalities and 3 out of 4 suicides, would we not see such numbers as troubling and as legitimate women's issues, yet reverse the disparities go unnoticed? Homelessness is no different, with roughly 70% of the population being male. Maladaptive behavior and poor academic performance also skew disproportionately male. So when it comes to homelessness, what I've noticed is that shelters tend to prioritize women and children over men. So more men are sleeping on the streets because, the shelters run out of space. Is that right?
Yep, that's right.
Yeah. So that's another thing to take into consideration when the homelessness conversation comes up. When society has been conditioned to satirize and humorize male suffering instead of recognizing it, men are left with few acceptable pathways to articulate and advocate for themselves. This is why so many young, impressionable, and hurt men gravitate to obscure corners of Reddit and internet culture to find solace and resources.
Because there's the only place that solace and resources exist.
Yeah.
Like what the fuck is your... Now I'm pissed. First of all, if you lived in a society where women's suffering was satirized and humorized and poked fun at, would you have a problem with their anger? No. You would consider it their right. So what you're saying is that the men are angry over suffering legitimate problems. Well, geez, who'd have thunk? How awful of them to be angry at something they have every right to be angry at. Like, what the... And then how awful of them to go to where they actually can express their anger, get solace and resources. How dare they go to the place where they get help? Like, what the fuck is this article trying to do?
Yeah, I'm feeling like I can make a prediction. I think what this writer is going to do is he's going to say, I see men's problems, because he listed them all, and that was pretty good. But I don't think MRAs are the way to go, because I guess, we're basically the same as the incels, the PUAs, and the MGTOWs. And we will lead people to that, right? It's like, oh, I can deliver the message for you, because if you do it, they're going to basically all turn into Andrew Tates. And
why is it that they're always saying, well, young, impressionable, and hurt men who go to places where they can express themselves and find solace and resources.
Mm-hmm.
Well, why aren't you recognizing that all of the mainstream bullshit about gender, which you've just said, is outright abusive towards men.
Mm-hmm.
Why aren't you worried about the impression of that on young men?
It's a good question.
It's like all right, you got what is a good freaking metaphor for this? I don't know. You have the group of ranchers who just beat the ever-living shit out of their horses. And a few horses run away to a ranch where they don't get beat. And they're like, well, think about the influence of that rancher making horses think that they shouldn't be beat. Really?
Yeah.
Really? Like, they might think that those horses might think they should get better treatment. That's bad. Really? What about the treatment that men are getting from these things that you've just mentioned are horrible and abusive? Like, do you ever stop and ask yourself, maybe I should worry more about what's happening to young men as a result of these assholes who are constantly mentally torturing them, rather than worry about what happens when they get a bit of solace in a place that stops. Like, what the... Oh, God, I'm going to fucking lose it. I'm going to lose it.
It's all right.
Right.
So, oh, there we go. I got a super chow. I got 2 super chows. So thank you, guys. One super chow is from Maintaining Frame 37. I don't know if that's a mistake, like you wanted to say something, but thank you. And he gives us $5, and he doesn't have a message at all. And then we have one from Xeranx, which is $5, and then there's like a 10.00 after that.
It's probably for the. Let me just take a double. Thank you, Xeranx. I really appreciate. Oh wait, there's 2. So he sent us 15 for whatever
I didn't
reason.
get that yet.
Yeah.
Oh, maybe that's what Xeranx is trying to do. He was trying to send 15, and it's like 10, 5, and 10.
Before we go, I did change something about the fundraiser. So if you're having trouble putting funds through, because sometimes I screw everything up, just maybe send a message through the message thing. Once again, it's feedthebadger.com/support. If any of you just want to put $5 through just to make sure it works, because I did change something and now I'm worried because nobody's put anything through. So I'm like, did I fuck up again?
For the fundraiser?
Yeah, for the fundraisers. I'm like, oh no. Because sometimes that happens. It's like, there's a couple days and I'm like, why isn't anybody? And then somebody sends me messages like, we can't use your fundraiser. It's totally screwed.
Oh no.
Yeah.
If you are trying to donate and you're having issues, try to message Allison or send us a chat tagging at Badger Livestreams.
Yes.
And then I'll see it. Okay. So Xeranx makes a donation through Super Chow, and he says, recently Michael Knowles was on the Whatever podcast. I don't mind what I've heard him say. I'm just concerned that leftists and conservatives will dominate the discussion on men. Well, yeah, they're going to, because they're most people. So I linked a podcast that involved YouTuber Not So Erudite, and Kevin Logan was on it. Not So Erudite. No. I feel like I know that one from somewhere. Yeah, what? Kevin Logan? Okay.
Wow, that's a blast from the past.
Yeah. They have an aim to affect men with leftism. Yesterday, there was a Twitter group, Speak. These people won't hold women accountable or make good arguments for why they should be, and men will be relegated to what we've always been.
Yes.
Well, maybe.
Yes, exactly what this article is doing. Exactly what this article is doing is just seeing men in terms of how they benefit others.
Right.
It's
all about utility. It's all about utility.
It's all about utility and sacrifice. And you're right. It is going to be that. But guess what? I have been thinking about these things a really long time. And I realized insofar as men have issues, and that's like, it's bad. It's like don't get me wrong, I'm not minimizing men's issues when I say this.
Yeah.
When society doesn't deal with the issues that men have, society has an enormous issue. Okay? Society is on the path of its own destruction. It can't, like, I can't emphasize this enough. Societies appear to form because men feel invested in them, and they feel invested in them because the actions of perpetuating the society give them a sense that they have a reasonable chance of acquiring a partner. I don't mean that that's like, oh, they can beat a woman over the head with a club and drag her home. I mean that they have a sense that their actions make them desirable. That's what it seems like. The society is the male human equivalent of a peacock's tail. And when you take that away, men no longer invest in your society. And then it's basically a dead man walking situation, because its productivity declines, its ability to protect itself declines, its ability to project force declines, its ability to feed itself declines. You can see all of this. Not just protect itself, but maintain itself. You can see all of this stuff happening now. And it's going to get worse. And it lies to itself like a freaking rug. And these are all society. Men have men's issues, yes. But at this point, it's really society that has men's issues, that has the issue. It is society that's destroying itself. I'm pretty sure that a good portion of men, as long as we keep the lights on, the utilities running, will muddle through anything that's happening. Because honestly, men are physically tougher than women. So you'll muddle through, most likely. And if you are actually in employment that's critical, like critical infrastructure employment, because there may become a point where we all realize that that's the only thing that matters, you'll probably still be functioning fairly well. It's everybody else who's going to be in the breadlines. Okay? So it's like society has a men's problem. It's not men have men's issues. Society has men's issues. Society has them. And it's going to rapidly figure that out. It could be 50 years. Who knows? I can't really give you exact time sphere, but you cannot continue to act like this. And in fact, I can tell you what a triggering event will be. The reason why we can continue on this road, doing what we're doing, the reason why is because the US is the world reserve currency and the rest of the West is tagged to it. But it's obvious to me that everybody else around the world knows we're done for. I can't tell you when that's going to happen, but eventually it will. Unless we fix this. And it doesn't fucking matter. Conservatism, libertarianism, left, right, does not fucking matter. This is the only problem that matters. The only one. We need to recognize men's humanity and start listening to what they need and what motivates them and what makes them productive. Or we're just going to either the best case outcome is that the world currency collapses, the BRICS nations shrug and move on, and we get their scraps. They take on the yoke of human civilization, and the West spirals into just basically becomes second world, maybe poverty, but a poverty that an irrelevant poverty, but at least we managed to muddle through alive. That's the best case scenario.
Yeah.
At this point, until we actually deal with these issues.
Yeah. Okay, so I got another super chat from Voltaire's Puppet, who gives us £5, and it's just like there's no text, but there's like it's like a lemon with heart eyes. It's like dancing or something. So, thank you for that. Those are hard to sort of translate. It's like you have to know hieroglyphs or something. So, but okay.
Dancing heart eye lemon. Okay.
Yeah, dancing heart-eyed lemon person. Like so. Okay. Where was I?
I think you were the
when
growing
society has
absence
been
of
conditioned
color.
to satirize. No,
You're in there. Start the growing absence of fathers. It's the third sentence in that paragraph.
Oh, okay. The growing absence of fathers and two-parent households only exacerbates such problems. From worse educational outcomes to mental health issues and lower labor force expectations, absentee fathers are leaving young boys vulnerable to the riptides of intolerance abounding online.
Okay, that's what we need to focus on, is it? Okay, young men suffering. This is the thing that seems to be utterly invisible in this article. Young men as human beings, not just utilities and dangers to others.
Yeah, like they're treating them like a resource that basically like, oh, you don't want them giving energy to this thing. They should be giving their energy to us. And yeah, I mean, maybe I think the problems with absentee fathers for boys, it like them finding a place online is like, that's probably the least troubling thing. I mean, like, you know, what about them forming gangs? What about them?
But Brian, they might have a Reddit forum.
Yeah. They might troll me on Twitter from Reddit. That's way worse than, you know, like
gangs.
Yeah.
Terrorism, like actually driven by a lack of prospects or stupid crap like 72 virgins and I guess that's I know.
That's haram, Allison. That's haram.
Okay, I'm just saying that's really dumb. But you know, like that's so it's more important to see young men as potential dangers than people who deserve our compassion. Like what gets this? How does this organization get off?
Yeah.
Like lecturing us in some ways, you know, lecturing us about our intolerance. Meanwhile, it apparently doesn't recognize young men as human beings.
No, I mean, like, at least he's not being very clear about it. He's just saying, you know, like, again, like I said, it seems that the problem is that these kids that don't have fathers could end up online in Reddit. Or 4chan
or listening to us.
And they're gonna go there anyway. Like, you know, there's nothing.
You notice that they don't even mention any female men's rights activists or men's rights advocates?
Oh no. I don't think they're going to.
Of course not.
Yeah, of course not. Like the thing is that you and Karen and Hannah and Lauren and Prim and all the others, you're just too inconvenient. Like they don't know what to do with you, so they just pretend like you don't exist. That's why they focused on Paul and Mike Buchanan, because I guess they find it a lot easier to characterize them, even though they didn't say anything that is wrong and much less offensive. I mean, if you want to be offended, that's your business, but you know. But yeah, no, I don't think they're going to confront that. Maybe I'm wrong. This isn't over yet. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe they'll mention it. Okay. So, let's see. It is here, within the unregulated and unverified Wild West of forum culture, because, you know, that's just crazy. You can't do that. That radicalization and polarization breed ideological echo chambers. Imagine thinking that it's the people on the men's rights Reddit or the red pill subreddit or whatever it is are the ones in an ideological echo chamber. A never-ending feedback loop predisposed to fringe thinking. We have left boys and men exposed to the toxicity of online radicalization. Oh, sorry, go ahead.
No. You finished that sentence. I am jumping at the bit. I'm about to blow.
We have left boys and men exposed to the toxicity of online radicalization through our failure to carve out an appropriate social space in which they can express themselves. Shall I read the rest of this? It's a small paragraph. MRAs have so thoroughly muddied the water that apolitical issues like domestic abuse today are no closer to mainstream attention or sympathy than when the movement began decades ago. So it's our fault. See, we muddied the waters.
We muddied the fucking waters. Oh, okay. Yeah, we are responsible for this. Even though well before you were a fart in the wind. Family studies. Long before that, feminists were cooking the books when it came to domestic violence.
Mm-hmm.
Look at processes concealing symmetry in domestic violence if you want to see how far back it goes. And yet it's our fault? Apparently online men's rights activism, which really only was a big thing for the last maybe decade, it's our fault. Maybe decade and a half? No. This has been an issue, an ongoing issue since the 60s. Cooking the books about domestic violence has been an ongoing issue. Cooking the books about, is it men's rights activists' fault that Mary Koss redefined the CDC's, the Center of Disease Control's definition of rape to exclude male victims? How do we do that? Is that our fault? Is it our fault that feminist NGOs refuse to recognize the issues that face men because they know if they bring men into the picture, they get less money? Is that our fault?
Yeah.
I'm sorry, I'm yelling.
No, it's okay. I
pissing me off.
Yeah, I get it. And plus, if what he's saying is, we would be making a lot more progress if you guys weren't so toxic or connected to, the MGTOWs and the really bad men. You're just kind of bad or incompetent or something, right? But then if you think that that's so terrible that we haven't been able to, I think we're raising awareness and I think it's working, but if you think it's so bad that we're not doing enough or whatever, have you ever thought to ask yourself why feminists aren't addressing this? They know about it. They know that all the stuff that men go through, and all they know how to do is blame them for it. But have you ever wondered why they haven't even discussed or raised the topic of maybe we should do something for men. Maybe we should be talking about services that, we can give to them. Maybe we should open a men's shelter, No, they don't do that.
There was one feminist who opened a men's shelter. You know why she said that she opened it? To show up men's rights activists.
Well, I guess it makes us effective.
I guess we did something.
Yeah.
The one shelter that a feminist opened up, she did it because she wanted to have a counterpoint to men's rights activists. So shove that in your pipe and smoke it. But the other thing is that how come feminists are allowed to be as abrasive and angry towards men as they want to be? And their issues are still legitimate, and we still have to deal with them. How come?
Mm-hmm.
How come they get to tear a strip up one side of men and down the other, and we still need to treat them with kid gloves, and we still need to separate their issues from their vitriol, and we still need to give shelters and everything? How come? And the other thing is these people are absolutely 100% fucking wrong about men's rights activism. Since 2013, at the very least, the Center for Equality in Canada has been able to develop spaces for men to support men.
Cafe?
No, Cafe. They don't identify as a men's rights activist group, nor should they have to be honest. But they have been developing these spaces. Now, admittedly, a lot of us who are involved in Cafe or tangentially involved in some of their events have to monitor them for perhaps going back to some kind of feminist stuff.
Yeah.
But they have done this, and they have done this in the last decade and a half, okay? Exactly when they're saying, this group is saying that we haven't been making any progress. The only progress that has ever been made on men's issues was when men's activists were out and being loud. Okay? You lie about us. You lie about this whole situation. You're even lying about groups that I don't even particularly like. I mean, I'll go to bat for MGTOW. They should have every right to walk away from women. Okay? I'm not particularly interested in a lot of the stuff that they say that's very negative about women, but they have every right to walk away if they want to. Pickup artists have every right to develop the skills to generate interest in women. All they want is to be attractive to women. They're not trying to circumvent rape laws or harassment laws. They just want to make it so that their presence is positive for women. And you can consider that to be a horrible thing. And then what was the other one? Incels. Incels have done nothing but not be chosen by women. And suddenly they're terrorists. You condemn every group of people that expresses anything, truly anything that men experience, or gives them any kind of solace or resources. You condemn all of it. And you offer nothing in return.
Yep.
Except more condemnation and expectation that men exist only as a utility for others.
Yep. And
God, these people are pissing me off more than feminists. Congratulations.
Yeah, they're it's pretty amazing. It's like they're concern trolling. Whoever this is.
Yeah.
You know. Okay, and I think that is worse than just tell us that you hate us, you know, like don't beat around the bush.
Tell men that you just want them to shut the fuck up, you know, and go away.
Yeah, or shut the fuck up and go away. We got this. Their toxification. Wait, let me make sure. Yeah, I got that. Their toxification, that's us, MRAs, of the public square has left boys and men lacking a legitimate social and cultural vehicle through which they can advocate on behalf of themselves in a respectful and thoughtful way. Funny, feminists don't need that. No.
Yeah, like they don't need that. Yeah, so essentially, men must be held to a higher standard of advocacy than women.
Yeah, women can just demand things like angrily and like protest and wear pussy hats and be loud and obnoxious. But men have to say pretty please. Because that's basically what, in a respectful and thoughtful way. To address these legitimate grievances, men require social latitude and flexibility. But if we won't give it to them, then MRAs will continue to poach naive youth, and we will be no closer to helping boys and men.
Okay. As apparently David Blaff is a freelance journalist based in Toronto, and his opinions are those of the author and do not necessarily reflect the official policy or views of the Institute for Family Studies. Oh, cover your ass, are you?
Yeah.
Look, all right. If you are a young man, sure, I'll go ahead and poach you. You deserve a place where you're not just regarded as a utility, right? Where you're allowed to express yourself, even if it's angry, because you got a lot to be angry about, to be honest. Okay? And you are allowed to not just be seen in terms of being useful or a danger, because you're a human being. And this individual, who apparently may or may not speak for the Institute for Family Studies, apparently does not recognize you as a human being. You deserve to be cared for because you are a human being, right? Not just because, you might be a ticking time bomb, because you're not. Mm-hmm. This is the fundamental thing. When you truly get to the depth of all of this, you realize how much absolute shit men have absorbed. And most likely they are absorbing women's domestic violence, they're absorbing women's rape, and sexual violence towards them and giving not as much back, okay?
Yep.
They're absorbing this political and social violence towards them. And for the most part, you know, they're doing it really well. To be honest, I know the Institute for Family Studies will never say that to young men. You're actually doing a bang-up job for absorbing all of this violence that's being directed towards you and not further passing it along. I'm actually amazed. I am bloody well amazed at the tolerance of men, of the forbearance and the patience that you have. I'm freaking amazed at it.
Yeah.
It is astounding.
Well,
and
I mean,
goddamn, if you don't deserve a space to just get pissed at how much you're expected to endure. Like, this is what's so freaking hilarious. It's like, men should not be treated like this. They shouldn't be treated like they're potential bombs ready to go off.
yeah.
How much do they have to absorb to prove to you that they are fundamentally decent and good? Like, how much more can you torture young men? How much more do we need to do that to just finally say, you know, World War I sort of proved that young men will sacrifice everything for society. All of feminism proved that young men will swallow a whole bunch of bullshit and still work for society. And all of the domestic and sexual violence that women do to men that they expect to suck up certainly proves that the average man will not engage in violence unless extremely provoked. Well, at what point do we look at all of this and say, hey, actually, men are pretty good?
Yeah.
And not just that, they've done all that, and they built society, and protected it, and maintained it. At what point do we give them the benefit of the doubt? At what point do we look at what they've done and say, hey, yeah, you're right, you're good. You're good people.
Mm-hmm.
In fact, you deserve a bit of space to blow off some steam. Maybe we'll stop picking at you for beer and porn and games. But no, let's continue to be just fucking dicks to men.
Yeah. Well, maybe that's one of the things that, not that I like that, but maybe it's one of the things that allows men to endure is the fact that they aren't, I don't know, appreciated, I guess. I mean, that would be nice. But, yeah.
Well, I don't think it's key. I like, honestly, I think you've done a really good job of enduring, but I think there's some serious signs that it's not going to keep up.
Right. No, I mean, yeah.
Well, that would be the men's issues.
Mm-hmm.
Like, it's just like men are a camel and society just keeps piling shit on it and whipping its legs when it starts to tremble. Like, maybe you could pile a little less shit on your camel.
Yeah.
And then Institute for Family Studies just decided to put another brick of shit on men and boys.
Yeah.
I really hope maybe there's young men who are reading this article and like, oh, well, we wouldn't want to be around men's rights activists. They're horrible people, herpaderp. Well, I hope that someday all men will be able to hear me say this.
Yeah.
You're good. You done good. You have nothing left to prove. Society has something to prove to you, and that's it's worthy of your existence. Like, hell, I was in St. Peter's Square. I was looking up at like this. I think there's a statue of Christ on the cross, and I was thinking, wow, so this entire religion exists because a young man suffered and died. And we can't even stop and give young men the time of day.
Mm-hmm. Where were you at? St. Peter's Square?
Yeah, St. Peter's Square. It was in Rome.
Oh, in Rome. Cool.
Yeah. Um,
Yeah.
yeah, it was really
Yeah.
fun. It was a very interesting trip. It was when we went to no, I guess I didn't. No, yeah, you were there. Didn't we take no, it
I
was
didn't go to
Karen
Rome.
and yeah, it
Oh,
was Karen and Mike. We went
okay.
to Amsterdam and then
Oh, I know. That was like after
yeah, after I got kicked out of the US.
yeah.
And
um
yeah.
so anyway, that's the end of the article. There is no comment section, so I can't see if there was any disagreement with the piece. I think it's this is really, I think, more insidious than most because it starts out, like talking about the men's movement and it sounds as though the author doesn't care about men. He doesn't know what their issues are, and then he goes through and talks at great, in great detail about men's issues, and then he ends by saying, I know all these things are real, but we can't let the MRAs like have the, I guess, authority over this, and so and it's like a, what do they call it? It's a shit sandwich. So, you know, you have insults and degradation and slander, then you have useful information, and then at the bottom you close with well, I know what the issues are, but I don't think these people are qualified. So, but the truth is, I would wonder how many of those things that he found out was a direct product of what we talk about, because a lot of the data, I know that he cites other people, but a lot of the data is exactly what we're saying. So, does it really matter like how the word gets out? No, but it does matter what the solutions offered are, because you see, this is the issue, right? Like, if you say, well, what's the solution? And he says, well, and it becomes like this thing where, well, men, you should be using your energy to help our causes, and then we'll, consider yours, instead of just leaving them alone and saying, you know what, we should probably just get out of the way, because I think that's the issue. Great Indoor says he sent me a super chow. All right, let me just check. I gotta go into the thing. Hold on. I don't see it. He said he sent one, but I don't see it. Allison, are you there? Are you muted?
I was checking. It says it's on hold. So you haven't sent us a super chow. Something happened in the run up to it going through. So I would go back and either put it through again or probably just put it through again because it's not going through on our end.
All right.
Yeah.
Okay. I have the thing open. I'll see it when it goes through. So, anyway.
Yes. All right. I think I've ranted enough about this. This is freaking insane. And at some point, you got to take the weight off young men.
Yeah. No, I get it.
Like you're running them to the freaking ground, and stop saying that the people are like, oh, maybe we should consider young men to be people in and of themselves and have a concern for the things that they want. Because really, that's all MGTOW is, and pickup artists and incels really. Their incels are just trying to deal with the fact that, women don't want them. And they don't want them because they're not attractive to women.
Yeah.
Because they don't have money and they're not good looking.
Yeah.
Okay? It's as simple as that. Like it'd be like us going to a meeting of fat women and saying you're a bunch of terrorists. How dare?
Yeah, right. Or well, I don't know. What is it? Sorry. Ugh.
How dare you?
My condition makes me yawn a lot. I'm not actually tired. What was the that Reddit that all the women are on, and they're like, I forget what it's called.
Female dating strategy.
Female dating strategy. Yeah. Aren't they just like the female version of incels? But instead of looking for, the the incels are painted as guys that are looking for sex, even though I know what they really want is a relationship. And the female dating strategy keeps talking about, like, you know, trying to level up and get like the top, you know, 1% of men as like their primary goal. But I think that they'll probably settle because a lot of them probably need to. So,
okay. Do we get anything else from the Great Indoors?
Let me see.
Because it still is on hold.
Yeah, I haven't gotten it. No, I haven't gotten it yet.
Yeah. Okay, well, I can't do anything about it. We cannot access your Super Chow until it goes through.
Yeah, I mean, I feel like I'm just kind of waiting for that, but we don't have to. I could read it on the next show if you're gonna be there. So.
Yeah, so just put it through, and then we'll read it on the next show. All right.
All right. Go ahead and do your closing.
Okay, well, thank you for joining us. Once again, we are doing our monthly fundraiser to make sure that we can continue to talk about these things in the very unique way that we do, which I'm realizing, I don't know, it's like, are we the only people on the planet who can actually be like, well, maybe we should treat men like human beings, give them a break, and put some expectations on women for a change. It's like, you say that and you're like, oh my God, this horrible misogyny. But why would anyone want to live a life without any kind of responsibilities? You can't develop yourself as an individual without responsibilities. Okay, so with that said, please support us at feedthebadger.com/support. And back to you, Brian.
All right. So thanks, guys, for joining us on today's show. And I look forward to your comments. Notice that the stream was seamless. This is like the thing now. Hopefully this won't change. If you guys like this video, please hit like, subscribe if you're not already subscribed. Hit the bell for notifications so you know when our streams go live. Leave us a comment. Let us know what you guys think about what we discussed today. And please, please, please share this video because sharing is caring. Once again, thank you so much for coming on today's episode of Maintaining Frame. And we'll talk to you in the next video.
Men's rights activists are machines, dude. Okay? They are literal machines. They are talking point machines. They are impossible to fucking deal with, especially if you have like a couple dudes who have good memory on top of that too. Holy shit, you're fucked.